So it's actually the 3rd of December, so Nanowrimo is over, but I wanted to finish this video sequence to kind of tell you how I did. The last video I made, I was writing towards the final battle, and I was kind of saying how I was a little bit stuck, so I had to fix some things. I added in some of the... I had some scenes that never made it into the novel, which I thought would probably be a good idea, so I kind of had to fix a few of those in. The main problem, again, is, you have to put your protagonist in direct harm's way of the antagonist. They have to come to a final culmination, a face-to-face battle. So the main antagonist of this book was Hera. I had to kind of make reasons and excuses for my protagonist to go out and fight the antagonist. Generally this can be done, like, it's not always a choice of the protagonist saying, like, I'm going to go into battle. It's usually something like they make some kind of a plan. They have to try to do something to stop the bad guys, and this will put them in direct or indirect confrontation. So they may not necessarily go into battle, but they kind of think, I'm going to go do this thing which might solve all the problems, and that might put me in the lens. That might call the attention of the main antagonist. So basically it's like hope for the best, plan for the worst, which is basically what my protagonist does. So first they have to she has to test her power. She's never really used her magical ability or weapon, so they go on like a little field trip as a side mission to recharge their magical powers. Then they go into battle. I wanted Hera, like my main battle scene was basically Hera in the Greek ruins or whatever, with some new magical creatures, and I wasn't really feeling it because I've already done Greece before in other books. Even though this is based on Greek mythology, I didn't want to keep going back to the same scenes, especially for the dramatic ending of the 3rd book. I wanted like a really big battle scene, and I already had, I think I mentioned earlier, right near the midpoint, I had a pretty epic battle scene already, so this has to be even bigger and more direct, which is difficult. Generally this is like a multiplication of forces, so instead of just and I mentioned this somewhere recently when I was watching the Nutcracker movie, where there is, in the final battle scene, there's an inner and an outer. So there's an outer battle happening with like all of the forces, the big forces of the good guys and the bad guys, a huge epic battle, hundreds of people or thousands of people fighting and dying. And as that's going on, there's the inner battle directly between the main antagonist and the main protagonist, and all of those other people, all that other conflict completely depends on the protagonist's victory, which is how it happens in Nutcracker, and I think that's a really cool motive to use in fiction. It's something I'm going to start trying to use. And it doesn't exactly happen how I wrote this book, because this is the 3rd book in a series. There's a little bit of a false ending, which I tend to do anyway. So they go into battle, and what happens at the final battle, almost always, it's direct confrontation with the antagonist, and the antagonist kind of wins. There's a moment where the bad guy triumphs, and there's a hero at the mercy of the villain speech I got from, I think, Sean Cohen's Story Grid. But that idea is just that they go into battle, they think they have some sort of a plan that might work, but there's always a twist or a reveal, and they weren't prepared, probably because they screwed something up, or now the protagonist is responsible for what happens. But anyway, so they go into battle and they fail to achieve what they wanted. So one thing I'm kind of excited about is, although this is Hera, and like I said, I wasn't really interested in writing it from a Greek perspective, and I already kind of had this epic Hera figure, so I have this thing where she needs to recharge. I think they have like a mini battle or fake battle, but Hera runs away, and she goes back to her more ancient cult-like centers of worship so she can get more magic. And one of those is Kali, which is the Indian or Hindu goddess. It's a bit of a stretch. There's not really, like, historically, mythologically, there's not a direct link between Hera and Kali, but I can make it work, and that also means I can have this completely epic, 4-armed, sword and head-wielding goddess of rage, basically, which kind of Hera is. Like, there's actually a lot of similarities. There's a lot of cool things I can do to link them together, so even though it's not like, if I was doing my thesis, it's not a strong theory that I could really prove. For fiction, it's close enough. It kind of makes sense. It's going to be visually a lot more appealing, a lot more stunning. So I'm excited about that final battle. But what's going to happen, there's this other scene which I wanted to have in this book and I meant to have somewhere. So I fit that in at the end of the battle. It's not perfect, but it's pretty neat, and I think I can make it work. So that's the final battle. I've been kind of going really quickly and doing a little bit of notes, like I said, kind of just to finish what happens. I'll go through and edit and fix it. So the next step, even though I've actually written most of this, because like I said, it's Nanowrimo's over. I had to go to Macau for a visa run, and then I did a 3-day jungle trek in northern Thailand. So I just got back, but I have been writing. So what happens after the final battle, my protagonist gets kidnapped by the antagonist, and probably for like a month or two, like for a while, and the idea is she was always looking for this jade tablet or emerald tablet. Her mentor gets killed. She gets put in this prison, jailed by the antagonist, and she has to find solutions to her own problems for herself. Partly she's been saved by various other guys in her life, and so this is the third book. She really has to dig deep, find this ancient wisdom or knowledge that's inside of her, and unlock a few of her latent abilities. She has some powers that she doesn't know she has, and so she's going to use those to overcome the antagonist. And you always want, at the end of your book, there's like the final battle, and then there's another few scenes where the hero digs in and triumphs. And sometimes this can just be like one chapter and just a quick wrap up. Often, like in movies, it's someone has to die or sacrifice. They have to give something up to go forward with the plot. In this one, it's kind of stretched out a little bit. Like there's another chapter or two where she's kind of in prison, kind of in jail, researching or like digging into herself to find these hidden powers. And then she uses them to like defeat Hera, tap into all this magic and all this power, and then she can basically walk out, like just walk out a free woman, and then get back to her peers and allies. So that's kind of how the last chapter is going to go. I didn't quite get to like the last sentence of the last chapter. I know it's going to happen, but I haven't quite written it. I already have 54,000 words, so I've successfully finished the word count of Nanowrimo, but I don't feel like I've completely gotten to the end of the book. And usually I would, like normally when I would get stuck or I don't know what happens next, I'd go through and revise, and I'd just fill in the blanks or edit, so that by the time I actually get to the last chapter, at least the first half of the book is really pretty clean, and I keep going back. I've already gone through the first half of the book maybe 4 times, so that helps. Like you're always picking up new threads. So once you get to the end and you know what happens, when you revise and edit, you're looking at it really differently, and you're starting to fix things and draw in parallels or wrap it all together. So that really happens in the revision process. I haven't done a lot of that because this was Nanowrimo, so I kept writing forward. So I did kind of get to the place where I know what happens at the end. I'm excited to start going back and revising and filling in. Now it'll be interesting to see like how fast I can actually finish the book. Like I said, it's a lot of kind of rough notes, but it's also 54,000 words of content. So when I edit and fix it up, this series is a little bit shorter, so I'm looking for like 65,000 words, and actually I'll bet this would be 70 or 80,000 words. I wouldn't be surprised if it was longer, because this feels like I'm not sure what the word is, just a more serious novel, like a more heavy novel. There's a little bit more content. It goes a lot deeper than some of the other stuff in the first 2 books. So I'm excited about that. And I also have this other book that I finished like a month ago, almost finished. I was like also within the last couple of chapters. So I'm kind of hoping in December I can just focus on editing and revision and possibly put out 2 different books, because they're like 80% of the way done. So I don't really need to do that much writing. It's just a lot of like revision and cleaning up, which actually is easier for me. It depends on who you talk to. Some people hate the editing and the revision process. They're more comfortable with just the drafting and the fun part, what they think is the fun part. For me, the drafting is actually harder. I feel a lot more comfortable when I have the bones of the story and I can just go back and edit and revise, because that's kind of where my natural strengths lie. So I'll probably just leave. This will be the last video of this series. I might show you a little clip about like what it actually looks like, what my manuscript looks like at this point, or I might just skip into another series about editing and revision, which will be the next big thing that I'll be working on, mostly in December. I also have a couple nonfiction projects that have been on the back burner for years and years, so I'm kind of turning my attention towards those. I'm hoping I can finish those either in December or early 2019. I'd really like to focus on a few of my general nonfiction books about creativity and things like that. So I hope this was a little bit useful. Leave me comments if you finished Nanowrimo, if you want to tell me more about your project, your strengths, your challenges, your weaknesses, what you're excited about. Go ahead and post those in the comments. Thanks, bye-bye.